Today, New York Attorney General Letitia James spent the morning in a federal courthouse in Virginia, pleading not guilty to 2 counts related to allegations of mortgage fraud that are widely believed to be completely baseless. Charges that President Trump personally, publicly, and repeatedly has pushed for. Just last month, the U.S. attorney who initially oversaw the case, the Eastern District of Virginia's Eric Siebert, left the office after reportedly refusing to bring these charges against James because of the lack of evidence. Though Siebert said he resigned, Trump claimed publicly, felt the need to, that he fired him. Either way, he wouldn't bring the case, so he was just forced out. Now, Trump then appointed one of his former personal criminal defense attorneys, a former beauty queen with no prosecutorial experience whatsoever, Lindsay Halligan, to take over the office, who promptly indicted James despite the reported lack of evidence. This is all giving you a whole bunch of deja vu. It is not deja vu. It's not you. It's the news. I mean, just 2 weeks ago, it was former FBI Director James Comey, another of Trump's perceived enemies, pleading not guilty to the charges brought against him. Those charges also came from Trump's handpicked and newly appointed U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Lindsay Halligan. Prosecutors in that case also told Halligan there was no there, writing a detailed declination memo to Halligan explaining that after months of investigating, they did not believe there was enough evidence to secure an indictment, let alone a conviction. But again, Halligan indicted Comey anyway. Both Comey and James have requested speedy trials so they can have a chance to prove their innocence as soon as possible. Now, Comey's trial is set for January 5th. Letitia James's trial is set for January 26th. There is a clear pattern here, and we just got yet another example of it. Yesterday, MSNBC's Carol Leonnig and Ken Dilanian were the first to report that the federal prosecutor in charge of investigating California Senator Adam Schiff told her bosses in D.C. that she does not believe the case is strong enough to move forward. NBC News matched and advanced that reporting, writing that after months of investigating, the federal prosecutors in Maryland leading the probe have not produced enough evidence to bring charges. So the U.S. attorney overseeing the investigation met with Deputy Attorney General and former Trump personal criminal attorney Todd Blanche to ask how she should proceed. And while Blanche denies that meeting ever happened, NBC News reports that the decision out of that meeting was for the prosecutor to keep the case alive anyway. Now, the good news here is that these cases are all so transparently weak, they are all but destined to fail. The Comey and James cases may not even make it to trial. Both Comey and James have filed motions to dismiss their cases on the grounds that the charges were brought vindictively and by a U.S. attorney whose appointment may not have been legal to begin with. That's where we're at in 2025. But the point of these cases for Trump may not actually be to bring them to trial. Let me show you what I mean. Well before any indictment was filed, Trump DOJ official Ed Martin was playing dress-up as Columbo outside of Letitia James's New York home, posing for photos for the New York Post. I'm not going to show them because they shouldn't be published to begin with. But conservative media has been publishing hit piece after hit piece after hit piece, not just about James, but about relatives of hers who are not even public officials. Trump himself has been repeatedly publicly calling for Comey, James, and Schiff to be prosecuted. At one point, name-checking all 3 of them and saying they were, quote, guilty as hell. Okay. Trump pushing these criminal allegations, whether there is any there or not, whether they result in convictions or not, is a way for Trump to hurt his perceived enemies. These investigations mean massive legal defense costs. They invite tons of press coverage and public scrutiny. And even if the allegations are completely baseless, they can do real reputational damage. As Donald Trump continues to demand the Department of Justice target his political enemies, and the department's cases against them seem to keep unraveling, here's what Michael Schmidt wrote today in the New York Times. He wrote, quote, "It is becoming clear that creating the trappings of criminality, the headlines, the scrutiny, the reputational damage, is as much a part of the formula as any realistic chance of conviction." Joining me now is Michael Schmidt. He's an investigative reporter for the New York Times. I will tell you my many years as a press person that when I still see your name, you're such a good investigative reporter, it still makes me nervous, like I'm in trouble. So, but it's great to have you here. So your story was so interesting because this is something that I feel like a lot of people have been saying, lawyers, Andrew Weissmann, others, about a lot of these targeted prosecutions or targeted indictments. Your reporting seems to suggest that these DOJ indictments against Trump's perceived political enemies are kind of part of this larger strategy, and conviction is not necessarily the end goal. So if you look, tell me a little bit more, you look to the inner circle, Trump and the people around him, are they not concerned that they're not on track to win any of these? That's not really what they care about, it sounds like you're saying.
I think some of the reporting shows that when Justice Department officials were told time and time again that these cases were not strong enough to result in convictions, they still wanted them to be brought anyway. And the president still wanted them to be brought anyway. And you have to understand, we're all in a education about retribution. We have never seen retribution like this before. And I think our initial understandings of it was that it was a tit for tat kind of thing, that Donald Trump wanted to put his enemies behind bars. And I think what we're seeing as retribution plays out is that that is an element of it, and that is a possibility, and that is probably the most significant thing. But there are these other things that come with it. There are additional types of scrutiny. There's an additional type of shaming. It's what these charges do to the individual and how they weigh them down that I think that we didn't totally have an understanding of until we were able to see it in the way that we have. Because we know what it's like for someone to be under investigation, for them to be charged and go to trial. That has gone on in American history for decades. But we have never seen retribution like this. So what are the byproducts of it? What are the other things that come with it? And that's what we're trying to say, is that it's more than just Donald Trump trying to put his enemies behind bars.
That the headlines and the legal fees and their reputational impact, which is very hard to manage for a lot of these people, even though a lot of them are fighting back, is part of the goal. One of the things I've been curious about, and you've, I know, done a lot of reporting on this too, is there are a lot of lawyers. It's not just Lindsay Halligan, obviously. I mean, she's moving forward against the recommendations of everybody in her office, but who are watching this happen, this sort of shame game of sorts, shaming targets rather than having strong legal cases. When you talk to people who are still working in the Justice Department and in these departments, how do they feel about this strategy that's happening? People who are still there, who have been there for a long time.
Well, I think if you take someone like Eric Siebert as an example, Eric Siebert knew that the cases weren't strong enough. And he knew that there were ethical guidelines that said that if you didn't think the case was strong enough, you couldn't bring it. And you can't bring a case because you're there to name and shame and embarrass someone and tarnish them. You can only bring it if you think you can win at trial and if you think you can win upon appeal. And that's why Eric Siebert told Justice Department officials that he didn't think that there was a case to be made. He was someone who was a Trump U.S. attorney as full and through as he could be. He really wanted to be there, and if he could have indicted this case, he would have. But ethically, he thought that there was a problem where this is not about naming and shaming. It's not about embarrassing. It's about proving beyond a reasonable doubt and then having that case survive an appeal. And he didn't think that that was there. And that's why he provided the counsel that he did. And that's why he was fired.
Yet there's still people who are, I mean, they're in this tough position, I guess is my point, right? A lot of these Justice Department lawyers, people who are seeing this strategy be implemented. Do you think there's going to be more of a mass exodus of people if this continues, I guess, from some of these U.S. attorneys' offices?
Well, I think the thing that we don't totally understand or appreciate is how diminished the department is. How much has it really been hollowed out? How many people have truly left? What do those numbers look like? And who is still there? I think that in any sort of situation, you can probably find someone to bring a case, but does that mean it's an experienced prosecutor that is going to be able to face up against these high-powered white-collar defense lawyers who are lining up to defend Letitia James and James Comey? In that sense, there's a huge advantage for the defense in the fact that there's only so many prosecutors, folks in the department who want to and are willing to work on these cases.
Michael Schmidt, thank you. I'll stop being scared of you. You're a good reporter and love reading your pieces. Thank you so much for staying up with me on a Friday.
As we close tonight, what we've witnessed isn't just another courtroom drama or a political talking point. It's a reflection of where America stands at a critical crossroads. In this broadcast, we saw New York Attorney General Letitia James, once a key figure in holding Donald Trump accountable, now standing in a courtroom herself, pleading not guilty to charges many see as politically motivated. We heard her words outside the courthouse, defiant, unshaken, a reminder that even in a system under pressure, courage still speaks louder than intimidation. And as polls reveal, more than half of Americans now believe the Department of Justice is being used as a weapon of political revenge. The larger question becomes, what happens when justice itself becomes partisan? Throughout the discussion, we heard legal experts and analysts warn about a growing pattern, a government seemingly consumed by vengeance rather than vision. A democracy is only as strong as the public's trust in its institutions, and that trust is being tested like never before. When prosecutors, judges and journalists become targets of retaliation, when truth itself becomes negotiable, it's not just about politics. It's about the survival of democratic principle. Steve Bannon's chilling statement that Trump could get a third term, despite constitutional limits, should concern every American, regardless of party. It's not just rhetoric, it's a glimpse into an ideology that sees power as permanent and accountability as optional. And while experts dismiss the notion as legally impossible, history has taught us that when the rule of law is treated as a suggestion, not a foundation, democracy begins to erode, quietly at first, then all at once. But amid all the noise, there are voices of resilience. From the millions who protested last weekend to the officials standing up against intimidation, we're reminded that democracy survives not because it is easy, but because people refuse to give up on it. Letitia James's words, "I will not be deterred," are more than defiance. They're a declaration that the fight for integrity is not yet lost. The deeper question for all of us tonight is this: what kind of nation do we want to be when the dust settles? One ruled by fear and payback, or one defined by fairness, truth, and accountability? Because in the end, democracy isn't defended in courtrooms alone. It's defended in the hearts of ordinary citizens who refuse to stay silent. And so, as we wrap up, let's remember, justice cannot thrive in the dark. It demands light, vigilance, and the willingness to call out wrongdoing, no matter who's in power. America's story has always been one of struggle, between the powerful and the principled, between ambition and accountability. Tonight, that struggle continues. What do you think? Are we witnessing a temporary storm or the start of a deeper erosion of democratic norms? Can America still rise above retribution and return to justice grounded in truth, not politics? Those are the questions we'll carry into the days ahead. If you found this report insightful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more real, fact-based news commentary.